Hi, my name is Joyce, and I love to give. My story of learning to love to give goes back to when I was actually a child. My father's a pastor, and we were doing a building campaign. At that time, I saw the people who were closest to me, the adults in the church, get up and share how they were giving sacrificially. And one woman that I knew especially well, she and her husband really worked to make ends meet. And she got up on a Sunday morning and shared that she and her husband went through their I'm sorry, this is a little emotional for me thinking back. Went through their whole budget. They went through their whole budget, and they could come up with an extra $2.31 each week. And I'll never forget that moment. And she was joyful about giving that money to see God's work done. I was young. I was in 7th grade at the time. So I was a preteen. I wasn't at a place spiritually where it really made sense to me that this building campaign was going to turn into eternity for people. For me, it was having gone to this small church and seen it grow over time. And then the excitement of realizing that more and more people were coming to church, and that, if we were to get this new building, that even more people could come. So the excitement was there, and we even built the church ourselves. So, I remember wearing my tool belt and working on the church and helping to paint and everything else like that. But there's another piece of my giving story that's significant, and that is there was a chapter in my life where things got extremely difficult financially for me. I was in a scenario where I was getting a divorce from my husband, and it was a highly contentious divorce. So I was a stay-at-home mom with 3-year-old twins, and our savings had all been squandered. And one of the things that had become so real to me at that point in my life was God's promises of who He is. And God promises to be our provider. That provision, it was very difficult for me because I had had a very successful sales career, and it was very humbling to be on public assistance. And I had to get to the place where I said, God promises to provide for me. He doesn't promise how He's going to provide. I saw God every single month make it possible for me to pay my bills 100%. There were times where things would happen and someone would be very generous with me. Every time I turned around, I saw God showing His abundance to me. And it wasn't just a little bit, it was more than I could have ever imagined. And I was so grateful because I knew that everything that I had at that time came from God. So I started tithing on everything that I received from God. And the joy that has come from watching what God has done through that, there's just this overwhelming joy knowing that God is going to do something really amazing with what I give, no matter how big or how small. But the joy for me comes in what I learned when I was a teen. That giving sacrificially is a great thing. It's really a lot of fun, and I love when I get to sit down and say, oh, look how much I get to give. It really is very joyful. And even when I hear God's giving me a number sometimes, it's not a direct correlation to, the amount of child support or the amount of my paycheck. It's at that time that I'll say, really? Am I hearing you clearly, God? But then when I finally make that release and I give that money, I actually just feel really joyful in writing that check. And that's how I feel about what's happening at Highrock. I can't believe when I was a kid and we went through this experience, it was such a time of spiritual growth for me. And to be able to experience this again in my adult life at Highrock is just a real blessing for me. So what happens at Highrock Church? People are coming to know the Lord. Their lives are changing. They're changing their workplace, and they're changing their communities, and they're walking closely with God. Whether you currently give to Highrock or whether you're new to Highrock, I just would like to encourage you to prayerfully consider what God is calling you to give to make this change possible.